They're not going to answer you, don't worry. Universal concepts. This is a time to like wave your American flag about truth and justice and the American dream. I mean, that's what you want to say. Little Johnny got hurt. He's in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Please restore him to the best that you can because this car accident caused this. Johnny's not going to have a very good life, but we can make it better. If this person's held accountable for their poor choices and decisions they made when they drove drunk that night. I don't know, whatever it is. So think about like these universal concepts about truth and justice and equity and fairness. And it can go the other way. It's not about just locking everybody up, even though I'd like to sometimes. I mean, that we have rights in this country. And our right to remain silent is something that our forefathers fought for. And that's what he did today. You can't hold it against, because when the state doesn't prove their case, there's no reason for him to get up on the stand. That's what our right to remain silent means. That's what it should mean in this court today. So use some sort of truth or universal concept to make it sound like you really believe and you love America. You should. Okay. One thing that I think is really important is how you start and how you end. I recommend you memorize that first paragraph verbatim and memorize that last paragraph verbatim. Carefully choose your words. In the middle, I think you can have an outline, like I have today. Like an outline that I just kind of go back and refer to my notes. There's a couple one-liners that I wanted to write down and give you examples to, so I refer back to my notes. But that first paragraph, I think you should stand and deliver it. Don't pace, don't move, just talk to them. And when you're done with that first paragraph and you're going on to the other sections, you can refer back to your notes if you want to. Some people want to give closing without notes, great. I usually don't use notes. But really memorize that first beginning words out of your mouth and really practice and rehearse the last words out of your mouth. Because you want it like a gymnast, like able to dismount at like a 10. Like they nailed it, you know? So that last paragraph can be just as important as the first paragraph. I strongly recommend you really practice the ending and the beginning. Don't be monotone. Because if you're talking for 10 minutes at this level, at this intensity, it's not very fun. And sometimes, when you're quiet and slow, it makes more of an impact than if you're screaming and you're yelling and you're saying stuff, but sometimes there's a time and a place for that too. So don't be afraid to raise your voice. Don't be afraid to go stop. And don't be afraid to talk fast and talk slow. And I sometimes put in my notes, speed up here, go slow here, loud. So I'll kind of give myself like stage commands, like go quiet. Because you want to make an impact. So vary your tone and vary your pace. That theme should be woven throughout your concept. At the first paragraph, the second paragraph, all the way throughout. Every time you can, I think you say it. So let's just say you should say it 5 times in 10 minutes. Okay? Pregnancy was the problem. 3 men, 2 guns, 1 mission. Because your goal with the theme is at the end of the day, the jury can say it back to you. Love it or hate it, they can say it back to you. The glove doesn't fit, you must have quit. Worked. Okay? And we're still saying it 15 years later. He probably said it 25 times in his closing argument because it lasted for 3 hours. But think about that theme. Say it 3 or 4 times in your closing argument. That's what makes it effective if it's memorable. Don't be afraid to tie up loose ends, especially in this format. You guys have this awkward transition from a memo you wrote. Now you're changing it into a trial that you never had, and now you're giving the closing argument. I think take some liberties here. Fill in the gaps. You can do it in real trial too, even when there are gaps. You have to tell the jury, hey, we don't know how this got here. But don't you think it's pretty likely it happened like this? I just thought of the case I just told you. I shouldn't say that out loud. But so you can fill in the gaps. The logical conclusion of what the evidence showed was this happened, and we know what happened in the middle. Is that he got in that car and he drove from his house to his brother's house and he picked him up. Now no one saw him driving, but we know how he got there. So anyways, you can make those logical assumptions and fill in the gaps. And your problem might be limited because it was about some legal issue that you had to be very lawyerly about. Now then kind of fill in the gaps. Like, don't be afraid to be like, oh, Betsy's my victim here and she's this great person and she's been living right here in Dallas, Texas for 65 years. So, I mean, you can add some stuff, fill in the gaps. And finally, be persuasive. This is not a moot court problem, a moot court exercise, and this is not about a balanced analysis in any way, shape, or form. Talk like you believe what you're saying. Because if the jury thinks that you're being phony or that you're not like believing what you're saying, they're not going to believe you either, and they're going to say, see you later. You really expensive lawyer, like, I don't believe one word out of your mouth. So be persuasive, and you don't have to give a balanced analysis. You don't have to be like, well, I mean, I can understand how it's close, but please go for me. I mean, that's not good. Be persuasive, tell them what you want to do, and believe it when you say it. So that's what I got in 30 minutes to tell you how to give a closing argument. Think about that organization. It's in here. It's just kind of a guide. It's just kind of a guide to organize you and to give you some orientation. Think about the tips. Those are things that you need to do throughout your closing argument in every one of the sections. Does anyone have any questions? We got lots of time. I have 30 minutes, but I just wanted to kind of give you that in a nutshell, let you know, I was thinking, yes sir.
Yeah, Zeke. I know one of the problems that I've thought of before is how to work a theme in throughout a whole presentation. You touched on that a little bit, but what are some ways that you can think of to kind of bring back the theme that you're using and work it in the middle of your presentation so that it's not just the first and last thing you say?
Right. So if a theme is effective, it's going to flow naturally. I mean, if especially if it's just a list. Let's just say it's like dazed, delirious, and dumb. That's not a good thing, but I just know, all right? So when you come out, like, remember when he testified about this? Remember how you felt after testifying that he was dazed, delirious, and dumb? And then after this, you can go back, and the prosecution tried to say that this happened, but that's not how it happened. We know how it happened. We know that this person was dazed. I mean, just force it. I honestly think you should force it at the end of your recap, at the end of your rebuttal, and then when you go down, I mean, there's 4 times the introduction, your case, rebuttal of their case, and the conclusion, 4 times the same. What else?
I have a question about, I mean, talking about like either being a plaintiff or defendant, is that something we can just sort of choose?
Pick.
Okay.
Pick. So think about like, all right,